You made the heavens, planted the earth, gave us stars for direction. But what was it worth if we don't have love? Oh, your perfect love. You filled the oceans, painted the sky, gave us each other. So tell me why, why we're lacking love. Oh, why we're lacking love. Oh, can't you see the darkness trying to divide? Yeah, you know it's up to us to keep shining bright and let our hearts stay lifted high. Oh, can't you see the darkness trying to divide? My Lord, you know it's up to us to keep shining bright and let our hearts stay lifted high. Oh, you can prophesy, speak in the tongues you made, but if you don't have compassion, how will they understand that we were made from love? Oh, we were made from love. Oh, yeah. Oh, can't you see the darkness trying to divide? My Lord, you know it's up to us to keep shining bright and let our hearts stay lifted high. Oh, can't you see the darkness trying to divide? Oh, you know it's up to us to keep shining bright and let our hearts stay lifted high. Time to spread more love. Oh, perfect love. Supernatural love. Your love.
Good morning and welcome to Spirituality Gone Wild. I'm Debbie G and it's time for a Cuppa Grata with a shot of expression and 2 squirts of reality. So today I'm welcoming back a co-squirt. I love Cheri Doyen. Here's why. Because she is so quantum. She is quantum everything. And her company, Quantum Theraputex, is giving us a new way to look at the healing process, especially if you're dealing with trauma. And that's the cool part. And I've experienced her healing, and we're going to talk all about that today and more. Welcome to the stage, Cheri Doyen. Hi, Cheri. Welcome back.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
Good morning. Oh, it's, you know what? I love that that we're here and that we're doing this thing. And, you know, it's interesting how that things line up. I think this morning was a really good example of quantum yo-yoing. Is there such a thing? I think I've just made a new term, quantum yo-yo. So we were in alignment, quantum, we're going to do this. And then I woke up in my other land and time, and I yo-yoed back and forth with time until I finally figured it out. And I'm like, oh, yeah, here we go. So we're here. I want to just listen, you guys. Quantum activation exercise trilogy. We didn't come with a guidebook. This trilogy of exercises are the basics for quantum therapeutics for PTSD and trauma resolution. Plus, there's a bonus module. I'm talking about what is available for you to take a look at today. In module 1, it's disassociation is a given for so many of us, but what is that and where do we go? Okay, so we're going to start right there, and I'm going to put the link for everybody to sign up and take a sneak peek at the module. But let's talk about, Cheri, what is disassociation, and can you go ahead and explain that question that you're asking on the website?
Absolutely. You know, dissociation in the psychology world is a dysfunction, and in the spiritual world, it's a spiritual gift. Being able to separate our astral body from our physical body. And when a child experiences trauma, right, how is that different than the quote near-death experiences that adults have when they can watch their experiences from above, right? And for a child, this body was brand new, just an idea, and it might not be so fun to be in it, right? Or they're bumping up against things that there is no place in their brain to process or evaluate. There's no growth of programs, right, for that complexity of thought that would come in with somebody that is, saying I love you and causing harm at the same time, right? So what's a kid going to do but get out, right? Now, the true definition of dissociation is the separation of one thing from another, right? And, the astral body has molecules. I mean, even air has molecules. So to think our astral body didn't have molecules is very naive, small thought, right? So we talk very often about the fragmentation that happens with trauma, but it's an idea. What's fragmenting, right? That became my question, because my final psychiatrist said, I don't know how to help you any further. What I know is you're not in there. And I was like, well, where am I? He goes, I don't know, but I just really know in my gut that you're not in there, right? So what is amazing is that you have to separate your astral body from your physical body to astral travel.
Right.
Or a quantum jump. So this is the first step in being able to turn our gifts from reaction into action.
Oh, right? That's sweet. Yeah.
Like to just understand and know, like, okay, I understand what I'm doing. I understand the difference of being able to see myself in a room or look out of my eyeballs. Like that was a moment for me that quantum was built on, right? I was working with Deepak Chopra, and he was really trying to take astral travel out of my subconscious into the conscious realm. And I ended up in an astral travel class, and I'm sitting there going, my perspective was no different than it ever was. I could see the whole room at one time. I didn't know that you couldn't do that.
Okay.
Because the first time I left my body, I was 6 months old. I didn't know that wasn't a normal way of experiencing life. See what I'm saying?
I totally do. Do you actually remember this? Do you remember that?
The 6 months.
Do you remember being 6 months old and having that happen?
I remember that.
So
I would constantly ask my mother, like, something terrible happened to me when I was a baby, and I get glimpses of it, and for years she denied that, and finally she was like, yeah, right, and yeah, I my memory was as if I was watching from a camera up in the corner of the room, right, so I could see him from behind, I could see me head on, right, and I was a baby. Right?
Okay.
A lot of people have those experiences.
Right. And I don't know if anybody watching, this is some pretty deep stuff. So if you've ever experienced childhood trauma, then you may have very well experienced what we're talking about. And that's when you're out of your body. That means that during intimacy, this is what I'm relating it to, because this is when I first realized I was going out of my body, was intimacy. I was not there. When I heard about being present took a minute for me to even get. I had to actually focus on what that meant to become present, to be here, right? And not be somewhere else. So this is the beginning of the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Now, what did you hit? Did you hit obviously flight? I did too. Did you also do the fight?
Oh, I mean, I was almost murdered the first time when I was 6 months old, and again
Okay.
at 9. And,
So you
we
went more
lived
into
with,
freeze. Did you go into more than then you went more into the freeze and the flights because you just were so little. There was nothing left for you to do.
I just got out.
Just got
My
out for
body
the.
fought. My body fought every time, right?
Mm,
That's why I was still alive, you know.
oh,
But, um, there was not a moment that we knew that tomorrow was a given. So there's really not being any more present than that, right? Because
mm-hmm.
death, I already knew it, right? Because really, a near death experience and dissociation are exactly the same thing. It's exactly
Okay.
the same thing. You're out of your body and you're watching, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
either choose to come back in it or you don't, right? So what I find, with especially childhood PTSD,
Uh-huh.
is that these kids like exited their body, and they're brilliant. Like, there's not an idea of what's possible and what's impossible when you're that young, right?
Okay.
Those are all grown up thoughts. So for a child to go, all right, like, this moment is awful, I'm gonna pull out, and then what are they gonna do next, right? What are they gonna do next? They don't have to stay here in the 3D, right? And they don't necessarily have to stay in that reality. They're in the ethers at that point, right? I know
Mm-hmm.
for myself, it became a way of being, to be sucked back down into my body. And that's exactly what it felt like, being sucked back down, which also very much felt like the closing of a dream,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I would sit there and, why do kids not tell? This is the reason right here. It's quantum entanglement, right? So this
Okay.
kid, you know, comes back down into their body, and they're like, I remember trying so hard to hang on to that memory so that I could tell.
Mm-hmm.
I tried
Mm-hmm.
really hard. And it was just as exactly the same feeling as a dream closing as you're walking to the bathroom, that kind of pop, right? Which is a loop in time,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
So and this is what's cool is that you came to the loop in time. And so anybody watching and they're thinking, if you've had trauma, any time at all in your life, that's where this loop is. That's where we recycle that memory and that thought, and it keeps coming and it keeps coming. This is what's cool is working with Cheri, you're able to go back into some of these trauma points, which is or isn't comfortable. If you've done a lot of work, it's not that uncomfortable. It's pretty easy to do. I had a really easy time with you, Cheri, going into that space because I love to go into the quantum space. It was like, okay, Debbie, close your eyes and let me know when you're there. Okay, there, let's go. Like, I'm ready for that. So it was kind of fun,
because
actually.
people can do it, they're doing it unconsciously. So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So now you're
sometimes
making
people come into my space and they're like, "How do I know I can do it?" And I'm just like,
right,
"Close your
right.
eyes.
Just close your
Right? I
eyes.
already know
Yeah.
you can do it, right?
So
Because you're doing
yeah,
it on anything."
but it was a beautiful experience because it's very comforting the way that you guide and you bring in the right scenarios into that in order to stop the loop. Stop the loop. The loop to loop is what's keeping a lot of people stuck in the space that they're in. Yeah.
Absolutely. And another aspect of that is that if the astral body has molecules, right? Then there are molecules of your astral body trapped in that loop as well. So the final part of that vortex, when we go back in, like, we're truly reuniting those
Mm,
molecules back into the whole of your essence, of your being, of your life force, right? I have people that like struggle to get their body out of bed, and very quickly they're having energy. They can get up, they can move, they can go to yoga, they can go for a walk, right? Because they have enough life force here to operate their body, right? Often I have people that are in such crisis by the time they get to me that, you know, they're shorting out, they're passing out, their body's collapsing, right? For myself, my blood pressure was so low, they were worried I was just going to fade away, right?
Okay.
You know, there wasn't enough of me here occupying this body. And what happens even to a house that is not lived in? Very quickly, right? It's going to start going into ruin, right? And for many of us, I believe that we don't even know we're out. You know, I didn't know the difference. And I had so many healers. I'm going to put you in your body. No, that changed nothing. What changed was knowing, you know, the distinction of what it felt like to look out of my eyeballs. Life looked very different.
Right.
The
To see
distinction
present.
of how my body felt, right? Awake and alive, right? Being able to feel the pulse in my feet, right? You know, that's a big part as well as reacquainting people with their bodies. You know, we live on 5 levels of being, and each one of those levels of being have systems, you know, energetically, emotionally, behaviorally, physically, and spiritually. And each one of those levels of beings have systems. And if they're out of alignment on one, it's going to throw everything off. So the more we're fragmented and the more out of alignment we are, the less we're going to be able to have a life that is operating in any sort of balance or stable way.
This is where people, you're making decisions from that, right? So what's happening?
I'm sorry. I had a young man recently that was, you know, inflicting self-harm and like just ready to be done, like, and to the point of having plans around such. And, you know, he's a marketer, and right now he's like, this is just lightning, like, right? And it's over. Like, that's not even in my awareness to have a thought like that, right? And everything in his bubble is operating in an optimal way. So life out front is in the 3D is changing.
Right.
I truly believe that a lot of the, you know, my experience was, you know, we're working out here, but we're trying to live here. And I'd feel great, and I'd try to insert myself back into life, and that wasn't working. Right? So if your healing is real and true, it's real and true in all 5 levels.
I would agree with that. I would think that that makes sense. And I would also say that if these are very, very good questions, and they're on the website. It's, do you feel lonely, empty, isolated, and alone? A lot of people do because of what's happened. But the fact is that if you felt like that now because of what's happened with the pandemic, then you're really most likely just experiencing that a lot. It didn't just happen because if you learn how to,
what if it's literal? Like, you know, I really do like to take things out of the idea column. But if you're not in your body's going to feel lonely and alone and empty, right? It's going to feel empty, right?
Absolutely.
That was a huge shift, right? And it is for most of my people in a very, you know, swift way.
Right. I'm going to, Linda, I'm putting the website in right now, sweetie. Thank you for asking. Linda, do you have any specific questions for Cheri today? And one of I love that too. Overwhelmed, confused, anxious. You've spent your life watching yourself live. You're feeling like you're not really here, but you are here. Any of those things. This is also in my belief, is why addiction's addiction. It's people are addicted to simply getting out of they don't want to be in their body, and they're having and when they come get in their body, they want out as fast as they got here. Like, screw this, I'm out. Whether it's sex addiction, uh, alcohol, drugs, food, doesn't matter. And that's just another form. I really believe that that's rooted. It's rooted in trauma. We all know that. We know this got shame and all of those things attached to it. But I also think that it comes with that. I think that's why we see a lot of people facing addiction for that reason, just because they want out of their body. Is that what you're
Well, I
experiencing with some
think
of your
that,
clients?
I find the addiction to be a response to the fear-based choices. And when we can move the choices out of reaction into action, right, they start
Mm-hmm.
having very quickly more, quote, control over their environment.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I find often those things fall away without having to be the focus of our conversation, right? My focus with someone is pulling them into balance, because if we're in
Mm-hmm.
balance, then we don't need the crutches to try to hang on or get away, one or the other, right?
Super, super
And
awesome.
and I think that, I find a lot of addiction in being in direct response to um, the emptiness of being out, because you're not really feeling anything real except for all the discomfort, right? And yeah, I think once people like really molecularly start putting themselves back together, the need for the crutches starts falling away. Even the prescriptions, like that,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my people just start forgetting to take them,
I love
right?
that.
Which
I,
is never my focus. Yeah.
right.
They just forget to start taking, they just kind of start forgetting to take them. And then it's like, okay. Or they, kind of forget that drinking has been occupying time, and they start spending that time in different ways, right? So,
I love this because it's one more space where somebody can experience healing and actually getting to live. We're here to live. That's the cool thing. We didn't come here to not live. Or, I remember when I first stepped into the realm of spirituality, Cheri, it's like all of the things going into all, aliens and near death experiencers and angel, just all these different realms, right? Anything but what was here in the physical realm. I didn't really give a rat's ass. I was like, I don't want to talk about that. I want to look at, love and light, foo foo fairies, and though all that's really great and love it, and I still do love it. I have an angel painting behind me because it's feel good. It's feel good stuff. The reality is why we're here. And that's what I love about
we
your
chose
work,
to be human. Yeah, we
right?
chose to be human.
So
And
may as
to
well do it
me, like,
easier.
yeah, and like, people are often talking about their spiritual path. And I said, to be human is to be spiritual,
Yeah.
right? To be fully human and fully present is all five of those levels of being one, you know, back to
Hmm.
the old, being able to fit through the eye of the needle. You can't fit through if you're like this. And everything's operating separate from the one, right? And we can't reach unity out there until we have it within ourselves. So as we're working in the quantum, right, and people come and say, I want healing, I'm like, I want to bring you wholeness and balance, right? And I want all of your systems to be operating as a singular being, right? I know in my journey, right, I had spiritual healers, and I had energy healers, and I had acupressurists, and I had, physical doctors and mental doctors. And all I wanted was somebody to see me as a whole person. That's quantum. Like, we're tracking all five of those levels of being, and we're tracking dis-ease and how it affects all every moment, right? So when somebody is, you know, in conversation with me and they're going into story, I'm tracking the whole time they're talking, right? It's not about emotion. It's not about their story, right? You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's about finding that moment where the energy got tied off and flow
Mm-hmm.
stopped, right? And what we have to understand in that moment, every thought is fear, right? When we start making fear-based choices, our life is not going to go up, it's going to go sideways,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
right? You know, I had a woman come and stay with me for 3 days and we did a deep dive, right? And, you know, that's her response, you know, a week out is that I lived my life in crippling fear and today I don't have any. I don't have fear, right? And that's the big piece as well. As we're doing this, fear is dissipating on every level because you know, what's trapped in those moments is our nightmares, and they've got energy just swirling, you know, day in and day out behind the scenes in our programming, right? Just as if we had cysts all over our bodies encapsulating infection, your entire system is going to be working to prevent that from coming forward.
Mm-hmm.
Same exact thing, as above, so below. So when we can step out of the emotion and step out of the story and just decide we're going to dismantle it, it can happen very quickly, very quickly. And, you know, usually the first couple jumps with people like are more emotional and then they get it. And they're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, okay, let's rock it, right? And, you know, we can clean up, you know, the time loops and karma are exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those
Mm-hmm.
moments where spirits and science intersect are brilliant, right? And karma, those karmic cycles that we hear about, that's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same
Well,
exact thing.
that's the yeah. Why don't you because I like your theory on karma. I think it makes a lot of sense. So explain where you're coming at with the word karma.
Well, you know, by definition, right, karma is our past experiences following us through time
Mm-hmm.
until we make different choices, right? And we recognize that it is showing up and we make different choices. Be that people that are showing up, you know, experiences. You know, often I see, you know, traumas with people that travel through time, not just this lifetime. That's karma, right? That's that experience following us forward until we choose to see it, right? And I know from my upbringing that, you know, this idea of forgiveness was thrown forward. And what I can say about that was the way that was offered, right, left everyone in the whole scenario unaccountable, right? Which again has karma running, right? Who gets their lessons in that space when we're just walking by like this, right? No one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that personal responsibility of us seeing those cycles so that we can prevent them going forward into the next generations, right? That's what we do. Like, it's just like, let's clean up your entire timeline of any debris as much as we can find, right? So that tomorrow and the next generations that are following you in are not having to relive those experiences, right? What do you think the generational trauma is? That's karma, right? It's those loops of time, exactly the same thing, that are just like replaying over and over in big ways and small ways, just hoping to be seen and resolved.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So That's kind of the interesting part when you come. I have a that is true in my life. My mom came from a lot of trauma. My grandmother came from a lot of trauma, so on and so forth. Right? I mean, just I'm radical. Like mine comparatively wasn't what theirs was, but it's been through. It just keeps going until that, like you said, somebody has to be willing to say done, and
Done.
I'm gonna face this, and that's it. I had this experience, and in fact, I told my mom that too. This is done. This whole this whole shenanigan of trauma is bullshit, and it's over. It's over. And here's how it's going to be. I'm just going to get out there and speak my truth. Now I'm
But
here
bottom line
years.
is, like, I cried so hard, and my daughter experienced it at church,
Mm,
the safest place that could possibly feel like
right,
I could
right,
leave her for 5 minutes alone,
right.
right?
But see,
And
right.
what I was doing didn't change that. But I
Well,
guarantee you, my grandbabies will not experience it,
that's what I feel
right?
too. But this just happened with my mom a few years ago. This was just three years ago or so that I said these things. That I said, I just one day woke up and said, enough is enough. Enough is enough. And how do we stop this? And I think that we've seen this all over. A lot of the Me Too movement was about this. Was that people said, okay, yeah, enough is enough. Now that's great to say that, but now here I am, years later, and I have been able to experience going through this journey with Cheri, and it's been life altering because last Friday I got to go through the quantum uh, closure of the loops that were going on and on and on. And and it doesn't matter how much work that you've done. If you're a healer, if you're not, actually, the healers need healing more than anybody else. And we all know that. Hello, raise your hand, please.
Mhm.
Hello. You want to go out and do this work, and we instinctively know how to do this work. So this is, but it comes
I
down
have a
to
training
we
program that I'm
we need
very
each other.
passionate about. I have a
Well,
training
let's talk
program
about
that I'm
that.
very passionate about called Heal the Healers, right? And in that
Yep.
process, like, the class is set up, right, to trigger you. Because by the end, like,
Uh
so
huh.
you get your personal work and the training at the same time. I have tons of case studies that we actually witness and walk through as well with the training. And, I've written a book, and that's part of it as well. But the whole program is set up to trigger you so that by the end of this program, you can't be toppled, right? Because I hear so many, healers are like, oh, I can only take 2 appointments a day because I'm so drained. No, like, we need you whole enough and solid enough that you could sit here all day if you wanted, right? I can sit here today and do appointments from 9 until 7
Hmm.
and be energized at the end of it, right? Because it's not affecting me in any sort of negative way, right? And we need our healers out there spreading wholeness, right? I also have had spaces where, you know, in their space of love for me, right? False information was shared, right? Just recently, my father admitted through dementia that he had molested me. And he mentioned that to my brother, like, just like blah, 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 like, boom, this happened, and back into the blubber, right?
Hmm.
And very early on in my journey, I had a healer that I walked in and I said, I really think my father was molesting me. And she was like, oh, you didn't know that, right? And then years later, I was actually taking a medical intuitive class, and the teacher walked up to me and said, I know you think your father was molesting you, but he wasn't. So what did that cause in this being?
Hmm.
A
More
huge
confused.
divide.
Yeah.
Huge divide, right? Because,
Hmm.
there was no way to substantiate it. And, every child wants to believe that that's not true of their parent, right? So, again, that place that was so fractured, was even opened wider. And one thing about quantum is you do it. Because of these experiences I had, we aren't going to tell you what you see and feel, right? We aren't going to tell you what is the trajectory of your choices, right? You need to come into a place of discernment and wholeness so that you know your truth, right? So most of this process is teaching you how to work in the quantum yourself, because you already know, right? So it's really taking what is in your unconscious and moving it to consciousness. And we guide you to do that, but we're not going to tell you anything, right? Because me telling you could just be bullshit. I believe that, right? It could just be a lens that I'm looking through, right? And not your truth, or not what you need to hear and see right now. So, when we step into those sessions, it's truly without a plan, blank slate, and we just follow and track what's showing up for you that day.
I love that. And I think that this is some really, really strong information that's came through today. Does anybody have any questions? We're going to need to go a little bit early today. We will be back again next Monday. So just watch for us. And we're going to go through another session this week. So then I'll give you guys an update as to what that's looking like next Monday. In the meantime, I have put Cheri's website into the chat, and I'm doing it again so that you've got access to it. If you're watching on the replay, click and go experience Module 1 so you can get a taste, and then you can always book with Cheri as well and do private sessions with her if you so choose to, which I highly encourage you to do because they're pretty cool. I mean, I can tell you that what's beautiful about it is being able to go back now and know that that is the memory now, is just of this container of safety. So that's what I experienced, was developing a container of safety around the thing that was a trauma point. So that's, to me, that is a big deal. And the reason that you do this with somebody else versus just yourself is so that you do have guidance. We're here to help each other do this thing right here. And then it helps us to live this human experience just a little bit easier. And if anybody has questions, get them in there. Hurry. Okay, Cheri, anything else before you go?
Well, I think the importance of having a guide is that, it's difficult to get out of our story and see the discrepancy that we've lived for so long. So, having somebody that's looking at the whole picture versus the pinhole, like you could say, is it possible that your father was also molested? Or is it possible, right, to where we can broaden that scope of awareness around a situation, right, and shift perspective a little bit, right? And I think that's why, like you're feeling now, is safety around that moment versus fear.
Mm-hmm.
Right? A shift in perspective, right? So, and you're not trapped there anymore.
Correct. And one of the cool things about this too is that there's a freedom there. There's a freedom from the story, a freedom from what was to what is. So if you want to get from the what was into the what is so that you can get where you want to go, then this is a really good process and journey to go on, because it helps do that. If you're a healer like me, if you and you do this work and you work with people, I highly encourage you to do it. I will always, and I've said this for years, and if you've been following me for years, you know this, I'm always open to more healing, more experiences. Keep it coming, keep it going, because I don't believe there's an end to this. I think that it's an expansive journey and I love with Cheri, you get to really expand. And then it's just, one more tool to put into your repertoire of human tools. So Okay, well, Cheri, thank you so much. I don't see any questions coming through, but that's okay. We will be back again next Monday. Today is Tuesday, 2 for Tuesday. And that's all for now. Have a super day, everybody. Thank you for watching Cuppa Grata.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone.